Welcome to the MBD podcast, the show where we dig into what's actually working or not when it comes to scaling businesses with the people who've been there. Today's guest has definitely been there. I'm gonna let her go ahead and introduce herself, where she's at, and where she's been.
Hi everyone, my name is Leily. I'm the director of sales here at Deep Infra, and I am someone who's been in the startup game for a decade now, going from zero to one at many companies, and also working as an advisor and consultant to many early stage companies as well. Pleasure to meet you guys, and I'm in the Bay Area.
Awesome. So, working with these startup companies, founder based, what are you finding when you're going into them that helps them be able to move into the mindset and get into being able to build a sales team that's going to help them grow?
It takes some work. It's a matter of setting expectations, understanding, what are their objectives and trying to get there. And it varies from use case to use case and who it is that you're selling into, but it's a lot of working with founders and kind of honestly training them on like how sales functions, how you need to go about doing things. And it's like little nitty gritty details that you learn along the way. Like just don't give it away for free the second you get on the call, or don't talk about pricing before they do. Little tips and tricks, right? And how you want to get them to talk more than you're talking, especially when you're trying to sell them. So it's just like kind of doing that hand holding a lot of the time so that we can kind of really start getting the ball moving and making sure that they're on time with like follow ups. Like being on time and prompt with customers, nothing is better than that. And I think engineers don't realize that at all. They're like, "Oh, I'll respond next week," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. They're gonna be gone next week."
Someone is, you got two other people talking to them, you push them out the next week, and they're already sold by then.
Yeah, and it's just like these little. It's more of the nuances of sales that you have to teach them, and kind of a little bit of like just how to talk the talk, how to go about it, kind of how to structure the call. Right? It's like doing a sales call. There's like a methodology to it, or like there's a technique. So it's just like a matter of like following those steps.
And
But
what
yeah.
are some of the basic steps of that technique that you've seen them have success? Because say they're coming as an engineer, they have no sales background, they may have difficulty talking just to the general public about the solution they provide. So how and what kind of steps do you help walk them into being able to be successful?
I think it's like figuring out like kind of like what are those like discovery questions. Like let's ask these before we dive in deep. You know, you want to get the customer talking to get as much information out of them as possible. That's
Mm-hmm.
like key. Versus the other way around. And I've seen the other way around happen way too many times.
Mm-hmm.
And then just as I said, like a lot of the like pricing stuff, how to handle it, and like don't just jump into a demo right away. Like and I've seen that happen too. It's just like, kind of like set up that discovery call, have that learn about that information, and then take it into another call, and like, really walk them through the motion and handhold and provide value along the way in whatever way possible. And that obviously varies from company to company, but I think those are kind of like the high level things that I want them to know and understand. And as I said, follow up.
Yeah, follow up is big. And then what do you find is a successful cadence for follow up?
um, no later than 24 hours at post call.
Mm-hmm.
Like 24 hours is even pushing it. I would do like same day.
Okay.
Uh, but obviously like things happen and that's fine. But I think within the first 24 hours post, and it's like you want to recap the call and the next steps, and add whatever kind of content they asked for, and then push it along from there. And I think
Now,
that also,
mhm,
yes, I was just gonna say also in calls, if you can set up the next call on the call.
that was my question.
Yeah.
Like, do you have them book that call on that call, or do they do the follow up? But yeah, so you got it. They do the call, they do discovery, ask a bunch of questions. Kind of ideally, they talk 70% of the time, you talk 30. Um, then you have them get that information, upload that, or do a follow up, hopefully same day. And then, do you use any tools to kind of aggregate the conversation? Do you have them record the conversation so that way they can then go back and look at it, or have a tool that you may
Yeah,
like? Yeah.
absolutely. Like they've been kind of game changer, right? Like
Hmm.
when I first got started, I was taking notes by hand and
Right.
uploading them into the CRM, and then, now it's doing
Yeah.
it all for me because it's like you can lose things and you can't write fast enough. Whatever they, um, and I think those are crucial. So you can always go back to the call, can see, understand the context, see what happened, and even listen to it. So I definitely use some of those tools, and some of those tools do help, in terms of like the follow up email.
Hmm.
Because before these tools, it used to be like dedicate, like let's say an hour long call, dedicate a good 30 minutes to doing like
Yeah.
cleaning up the notes, putting it into the CRM, writing that follow up email. Um, and then if you're having like 5, 6 calls a day, it's a lot,
Hmm.
right? As a salesperson. So I think these tools have really automated it and kind of streamlined these things. So I think they're necessary. They're not a nice to have, they're a need to have.
Right. And then for calls, like say I'm calling on my cell phone, what tool do you have going that you use that records that cell phone call?
I do not actually. If you have one, I would love that.
But you could do the standard recording on your phone. You can
Yeah, the
also,
new
yep.
Apple like software, yeah. Like that's like the newest thing. Yeah, but you have to just it notifies them and you have to ask them ahead of time. Because but generally like if I'm not doing cell phone calls, it's like more like if I may suppose Pat, like I haven't done a lot of cold calling recent days, but if you're doing it on your cell phone, then yes, that would make sense.
Hmm.
But that's like more of a manual thing. You're probably using a software, to do
Yeah,
the
most
dialing
people
and
are.
yeah. But if you have to just like go ahead and call someone up, yeah, then it would be nice. But those calls are probably usually just more like quick 5 minute and like, hey, have a question, like, just kind of clarifying a couple things and moving the ball forward rather than like a full blown conversation, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple ways. One, you got the recorder on your phone that you could leverage. Two, you could then, if you wanted to, you could push it through like a Twilio where you've got a number and have that number forward it to something to where it's recorded. So you would just change the number in Twilio if you're doing that. The other way is that you use something like Twilio and you just make the call from Twilio so that way you're on a web base anyway. So ideally, get away from the cell phone. But
Yeah.
once you get the audio from the cell phone, you download it, upload it into one of the tools, and it does the transcribing.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
ways.
There's ways now, yes. Technology has progressed
Yeah. So you
significantly
got
since the early days of my sales.
I know. So you got the discovery call. You've got the emails that's pushed out within 24 hours. Now you have the second call. What are you looking at doing on the second call? You've done a deep dive discovery, set up the second meeting. Now it's okay. Here's the demo potentially, or here's the next step of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so the next step would be like get whoever you need onto the demo call, and then kind of tailor that demo according to like what it is that they're looking for and what they need, and kind of talk their lingo. Don't just like kind of do the generic, "Hey, this is what we do." Um, and I like to have like a because depending on what size company you're selling to, like let's say like larger enterprises, you want all the people using it, the decision makers, everyone like on that call, just so like everyone's sort of aligned. And then you could kind of ask them and engage them on like which feature is important to them, what is it that they like, and then you want to follow up to every single one of them, right? They're all going to be involved in this process, so to get them all right, because generally a discovery call you're probably doing with one person, maybe two,
Hmm.
and then you want to do a deeper dive with everybody else around, so everyone's aligned. Um, just because otherwise they're going to start, passing things along to every single each other
Yeah.
all the time, and then it just delays things. So that's what I like to do in terms of like an enterprise level. Obviously, like if it's a smaller company, like you're probably just dealing with the CEO a lot of the time. You move it along with the CEO, and then post demo call, you're like, okay, so let's maybe set up a POC or some sort of trial to move things along with the hopes of like getting it up and running after that.
Okay. So you got the initial call. You got kind of the demo, right, where you're answering their questions and showing them solutions that you provide. Now, at some point, they're going to talk about pricing along the way.
Yes.
If it's me, I'm asking in the first conversation. Others may wait till the second. Do you have a way that you structure the that conversation?
I think it's like if they ask about pricing, it's, you know, depends what they have to say, right? But I like to see like, it's dependent on a few factors. Like we need to figure out like what works for you first before I can kind of tell you the exact numbers. As I said, depends on what it is that you're selling, right? You might have definitive pricing and you might not.
Hmm.
And that can vary from company to company, and that's fine. But if we have like definitive pricing, I'm not opposed to sharing it. But if we don't, I'd rather like wait.
Yeah.
Um, And then if people are like, well, if it's too expensive, I'm like, well, too expensive compared to what, right? Or
Yeah, let's find out what the solution is. How much money you're losing on this? I'll give you what that price would be. And then does it make sense?
yeah,
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 custom solutions always kind of fall into that where you're like, well, let's take a look at what you got going on before we can figure out exactly what that solution is
yeah.
going to be. Um,
Like
and that
so,
goes
like at
back
Deep
to what you're saying, the good discovery, right? Like, hey, how much is it costing? How much does that cost you to do? And then you come back with the solution, like, well, I'm saving you X amount. Is you know,
yeah,
and that's standard with
like
everything, right? Because they'll say, "Oh, it costs too much." You're like, no, it doesn't cost too much. Look what you're saving. Like, look at the revenue gain from it. Like, um, it's interesting how people think that, oh, you cost more, or this costs more than I thought it was. You're like, but look at what it's actually providing as far as a solution.
yeah.
So yeah.
But I was gonna say like at Deep Infra right now, like we're doing AI inference and GPU rentals, so it's like dependent on how many tokens you're using in and out, and
Hmm.
then we can kind of do the math on that. And it's
Yeah.
like they could do the math themselves; it's all public information, right? Or like how many GPUs do you need, and it's rented per hour. So these are things that you can figure out like even on your own, but they come to us so that we can kind of like work out some sort of deal that they're committing for a longer time. That's like on demand pricing, right? So but that varies from the company I was at prior, where we had to figure out pricing and like what is our cost and what do we want our margins to be, and we know what makes sense and how much money are we saving them, and right, because we were selling more of a SaaS solution in that regard. So it was about figuring out the specifics, creating pricing, and sometimes you give bigger companies more higher pricing and smaller companies lower pricing.
I know it's kind of backwards. Bigger company makes more money, but you give them lower pricing because they got a mass implementation where you can still generate a lot more revenue even on the lower pricing. And then the small companies always seem to be the bigger headaches, especially when it's close to the founder. I find like they want to be involved, and you're a bottleneck, and you're holding us up a lot of times versus helping us implement the solution that's going to make things go
Yeah,
well.
sometimes they don't get it, like the whole process,
Hmm.
but they do move faster than a large enterprise.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. No,
Both
the
pros and cons.
yeah. So now you've got the position. You're going to make the proposal for sale. How do you kind of structure your proposal for sale?
That just varies from, but it's just like overviewing like what it is that we're providing, what is it that they're getting, timelines, budgets, and what you're going to get in terms of you know customer success or support on our end. And if there's any sort of like downtime or whatever it may be, like include that all into that proposal to make sure everything's kind of like out in the open. If this, then that, right? And this is like what you're getting. This is the base.
Yeah.
So
When it
everything's
takes you
spelled
2 months
out.
to give me access, it takes me 2 months longer to do this. Like we run into that a lot. Access, like you guys, just access.
Yeah. So it all varies, but those are the types of things that we're working with.
Hmm. Awesome. And so now you got the proposal going out, you got it structured, you're providing, hey, this is what you guys need, this is our solution. And then how do you handle objections coming back? Or what are potential objections that you generally get or see kind of on average from people who are trying to essentially shop it out?
Price.
Yeah,
That's pretty much, especially, like I feel like nowadays that like no company has like a proprietary idea anymore, right? There's like
right.
there's always going to be a competitor. I think very rarely is there not one, but so I think price. I mean, I think also depends on like some certain functionality depending on your use case, right? For example, like at Deep Infra, we provide people with all these like open source models. There's a company that does only like image, video, audio open source models, right? So it's like they're somewhat niched within that realm. We do some of them, but it's like we provide all of them, right? But if you want like more niche, you go to them. So it's just like it varies, but I think biggest thing for us is cost that I see across the board most of the time. Very rarely has it been like we want the best quality, we don't care about price. And I've seen that happen at some bigger companies.
Hmm.
They have more money to spend, obviously, but yeah,
Do
that's
you
I'd say
have
big.
do you have any tips in finding out who they're also talking with and what potential prices are of that competitor? Because that's always an edge up for you when you know, oh, they're talking to
Yeah.
these guys. We went up
I
against
mean,
them.
I'll just
Yeah.
ask them, like, who else are you having a conversation with?
Yeah.
Sometimes people are upfront about it, some people are not. And then in terms of pricing, they won't necessarily give it away, maybe rarely, but it's like it's a negotiation tactic, right?
Yeah.
So they want to leverage them against you and vice versa. It's almost like when you go car shopping. Same thing. You're like,
Hmm.
well, dealership A gave me this. Can you do dealership B? So sometimes people are upfront, sometimes they're not. Depends on how, I guess, sales savvy they are.
I like to be upfront. I go, okay, here's the companies I got going on. I'm gonna put you guys against each other. Is what I like to do. Just like with the car dealership. Like, hey, this is who they're coming out with, and then you know, and you probably have a good idea what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then based on that back and forth conversation, usually I can identify what potentially the right solution is. I mean, there's a million ways to do it, right? But like that's what
Yeah,
I've,
exactly. It just depends on the personality type. As I said, I've had people tell me and I've had people not tell me, so it just depends
yeah, yeah,
and varies from person to person.
yeah. So if someone's listening who's trying to scale right now, what's one piece of advice you wish you had earlier on?
Treat every lead equally.
Right? Yeah.
Like you don't know who's coming. Like we've worked with one of my first jobs out of college, like we helped automate the follow-up of inbound leads for customers. This is like the time where everyone's kind of like lead scoring. A lead came in with like a Yahoo email address, didn't like put in their company. Ultimately ended up being a six-figure deal for that
Wow.
client of ours, right? And they would have classified it as like a really bad lead. I think you don't know who's who. Some people are, dealing with engineers, for example, like a lot of, if they sign up with their GitHubs, like you get their GitHub ID email and it's like the weirdest email addresses
Hmm.
that you think is like a 5-year-old made, but and the guy's like the director of engineering at whatever company.
Right.
So I think treat all leads equally. Um, give everyone an equal shot, as much, obviously, as much as your bandwidth can provide. But I think like in terms of like with automation, email as many people as you can.
Hmm.
You don't know who's who, especially when it comes to dealing with inbound leads.
Got it. Awesome. And where can people connect with you or learn more about what you're doing?
Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My like slash whatever, just lately. And then I'm working at Deep Infra, so you can go on deepinfra.com and learn more about what it is that we're doing here. And as a consultant, I have a website called askleily.com. If you're ever interested in any sort of advice or consulting, feel free to reach out. I'm working with a lot of founders in order to help them go from that 0 to 1 or help them kind of, give them a
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time.